So for this video I've done a test on a piece of canvas with the colours that I wanted to use. There is actually a little bit of burnt sienna in there, but I've decided not to use that because I prefer the look of just the blues and the greens. I've used Prussian blue hue as the really dark blue. I've got a metallic blue, and then there's kind of a mixture of an old bluey grey kind of green, that one, that's leftover paint from another painting, and then I've got a turquoise colour that's a bit of a mixture as well that I've added some white to. I'm going to add silicone to 3 of the colours, to the dark blue, the grey blue and the turquoise, and it's the liquid silicone rather than the spray that I sometimes use, so I'm adding a few drops of that. And I've prepared my canvas as usual with the masking tape around the edge to catch the paint as I move it across, and I've got quite an idea of the effect I want to get on this painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pour the paint from the bottles onto the canvas, start off in a bit of a pattern and then move the paint around so that I get the dark blues at one end and the lighter colours at the top. So I've actually sped up this video. I've kind of sped it to double speed so that it doesn't take quite so long as it did when I did it. So here I am just putting all the colours in the positions that I want them. I've also added a bit of iridescent medium to a couple of the colours because I like the metallic blue and I like the iridescent medium just to give it a bit more sparkle. And now I really wanted quite a bit of white at the top, so I added that in, but it didn't really come out as much as I wanted it to because I moved the paint around quite a lot. What I usually do is move the paint with something like this to get it to the edges, and I'll move all of the paint, but this time I decided I was just going to move the paint around on the canvas. You can see it just kind of butts up to the masking tape, so that saves me losing all the paint off the edge, although having said that, once I've done this I will actually tip a lot of the paint off because for one thing there's usually quite a lot of paint on there which would take a long time to dry, and also when there's too much paint it does sometimes kind of crack in the middle and leave dips and holes, and I prefer it to be a bit more flat on the canvas and a bit more finished, so I've tipped a load of the paint off because I wanted like a graduated effect. So I'll tip it up and down a couple of times, then I just need to see whether the colours have come out like I wanted them to, but actually they haven't really, so I'm adding a little bit more blue, the dark blue, and then tipping that down a bit, and then also I'll add a bit more white because I did want some more white at the end, and adding it like that actually gave me some quite nice lines within the colours of the paint, so that worked quite well in the end, as you'll see when it comes out. So then basically once I've tipped it to a point where I'm happy with the amount of paint on the canvas and the patterns that are coming out, I'll just put it down flat, and then just so there's not too much paint on one end, and also to get a few little wiggly lines and stuff going, I'll tip it a little bit to the side. So just clean my hands off and then get the burner out to try and get some cells out, and with this one, once I've got the burner working, it did actually come out with some really nice cells almost pretty much straight away as soon as I started heating up the paint. And there's some really nice cells at the top in the lighter colours, and also some nice ones came out down the bottom in the dark blues. Not so much in the middle, but I quite liked the lines and things that were happening in the middle, so that wasn't the end of the world. And then once I've got that done, I'll take the masking tape off and then I can start covering the sides. In this case, because there wasn't a massive amount of paint on the canvas still, I do need to actually put some more paint down the sides of the canvas, and because it's a deep edge canvas it definitely needs a lot more paint on it. Now I did start off a slow way by adding it with the stick, but that really wasn't going to cut it, so I decided that I would pour the paint on, which would cover the sides of the canvas much better. You can't really see how it comes out, but it's not quite as defined as on the top of the canvas, but it does allow it to continue a bit over the sides, and then with that leftover paint that's really useful to kind of tip it on there as well. and there was still a bit left over after that, which I put back into the muddy blue kind of colour that I had, so it didn't get wasted either, because I don't like wasting paint. So then, just to do both the ends, because this is going to be a portrait piece, and you can just about see how it all goes on at the top end, or what will be the top. So yeah, pouring it on is much more efficient in covering the sides, and that's really about it. I think I do burn it a little bit more just to see if we can get any more cells coming out, and then also what I tend to do is I like a bit of glitter in my paintings, so I'll add, in this case I add some turquoise glitter, and also you'll see in a minute, I will add some silver powder. I've got some silver powder and some gold powder that I tend to add to my paintings. With the blues I like to add the silver powder, and there's a close-up of some of the cells that have come out quite nicely. Looking quite good there. But in that middle bit just there, I wanted to cover that, well, not cover it, I wanted to add something there. There's nice cells in the greens and the whites there. So I put the silver powder into, there you see that's where I've put all the paint back into that bottle that I haven't used. The silver powder I add into that middle section where there's not so much going on in the way of cells, and you don't really need hardly any silver powder at all, because it's really noticeable once the paint dries. And that's the nice turquoise glitter that I've got, that I added just a sprinkle on, which also, once you've put the resin coating on, it comes out really nicely. You can see the sparkles of the glitter. So a little sprinkle of that, and then we go with the silver powder, and I propped it up onto little bits of wood just so it doesn't stick to the table too much. It did stick a little bit, but yes, that's where I want to put the silver powder, just to fill in that space there that doesn't really have any cells or anything. So you just literally tap the silver powder a tiny bit and you just get some sprinkles off there. If you tap it too hard, you get a big wodge of the silver powder and it will completely cover it. So you just need to be really gentle-handed with that. You can get the silver powder or gold powder, you can get them on Amazon. If you look in the description, there's a link to my website where I've got a list of all the products that I use on these paintings. So feel free to have a look there. So that's pretty much it finished. When it dried, it looked very much the same, and I'll put a picture on at the end of it dry. But yeah, some nice cells came out of that, and I will cover it with resin once it's completely dry. So I hope you like that one.